Hello everybody, this is weekend number 2 of our HAARP discussion, and for those of you who are just joining us, it would be nice if you would go to my archive and watch Hurricane Katrina number 1 so that you will hear me referencing the story of seeing Hurricane Katrina approximately 40 days before it made landfall in the U.S., as well to watch the very first HAARP video. That was from last weekend, and it just describes to you briefly what I saw, and that I believe that it's a prophetic piece of information. So I would like you to combine those two together and then kind of join us in the rectification of the possible HAARP exodus in Los Angeles for the area that I now understand to be around November 2010, the breaking point. If you watch the Hurricane Katrina video, what you'll notice is that the prediction and it wasn't so much a prediction as it was a sighting, of Hurricane Katrina was done during a reading in a very normal coffee shop less than a year after I had been reading for the general public. Now, the HAARP revelation came the same way. I had been reading for a woman, had read for her maybe 4 times. She had a situation that I'm very used to seeing, which is human love and human struggle with soul complications that lead to incompatibility where people can't separate. That's some deep psychological stuff, and I see it a lot. It's a high level of love, but it's hard to function under. So she needed help seeing her way through this, or at least attempting to understand what was going on. This was our 4th reading. She had had several 1-hour readings, probably 2 years, a year and a half back. And on the 4th reading, we were at the very end, and we were at about the 40-minute mark. The 40-minute mark is when I've issued the last edict, declaration, statement, idea from the very highest level we reach. And because I'm a galactic reader, that energy is always going to be different. I deliver that, and then I say to the client, is there anything else you'd like to ask about? Now, you must understand that at that point in the reading, I'm going to be floating and be very high and very solidly in one area, where my client is going to go whoosh, and they're going to circle back through the whole reading and make sure they covered things. Those are easy questions to answer because I already generally have answered them. So it's re-articulation. But I'm still in that high place. And that's important, because when she asked about her daughter, who was 15 at the time, her daughter wanted to move to Hollywood and go into school for film, and she wanted her mom to look into buying an agent. And the mother, because she loved her daughter, was thinking about whether all of these things would make sense or not. And so she was asking me. Well, when she asked me, and I rhetorically put the question back, should so-and-so think about LA? What about all this money and the agent? Yada, yada. I heard she won't be going. And that's a definite. That's not fuzzy. That's not hazy. And so I said, what do you mean she won't be going? And at that moment, I saw a massive exodus of the entire Hollywood, LA superstructure. And I saw all of that headed north into the northern parts of California, and some wondering whether that was far enough to go. Now, I delivered this message, and I stored that vision, but again, I didn't think too much about it. Now, I don't really dwell on anything. After I'm done reading, I go back to my life. I do what I want to do. I'm in tune. Everything is good. But as time goes on, if something is important, like Katrina was, it was important for me to understand why I saw Hurricane Katrina. Clearly, another vision, and again, I'm only on here talking about a few because I don't go looking. They present themselves. So when I saw this, it continued to kind of reveal itself and fill it out what it meant. that I saw this, and when I asked in the reading what causes the Exodus, I heard earthquake, HAARP, and it was very clear to me that it was a combined force, like a burning in effigy of a particular area. And that's why, instead of with the common man just getting hit, you'd see people scattering. It would be like a bomb going off. But because this looked like an exodus, to me what that means is that it has a root, that it has an intelligent structure. Why it's Los Angeles? And again, we're all wondering, what is it going to be, if anything? Like, are we going to make it out of this alive? And what's it going to look like? And there's just too much fear about different things. And I need it to be understood that even though I'm on here and I'm talking about this, I live in Hurricane Alley. I live prone to hurricanes all summer long. And it took me many, many years to move down here because I was so afraid of the idea of being disabled and being in a hurricane. And I've now been here and I know what it's like to live under the brute force of nature. So when I talk about this, it isn't so much by choice, and there isn't any way it can be about fear, because I got over my fear. And information, no matter whether it's revelatory, whether it's predictive, whether it's psychological, it isn't to be considered fear. Because the vast majority of you watching this are not going to be making a decision about whether to move or not. But I want you to quickly, and this is my last point in this video, to think about this. I heard about a study 3-4 weeks ago where they had somehow sampled the United States, and 63% of people were living in an area where they wished they weren't, or they wanted to relocate, but they were stuck, either from a job or home, finances, situation. 63% of the continental United States, give or take 75%, feels stuck. And so I would ask, do you feel stuck? I feel perfectly placed. I'm fortunate for that. It doesn't make all the conditions of the environment perfect, but I feel perfectly placed. So I don't believe there could be anyone in LA who isn't perfectly placed, because everyone's a bodhisattva. But I do this weekend want to talk about some of the technical details of the vision so that we can begin to play this out in a larger way. So please come back.